listening to an encore presentation of The Kevin Jackson Show.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Kevin Jackson here, KJRadio.com is how to contact us. You want to call 844-551-8255. Talking about hypocrites today, hypocrisy, leftists. We're all hypocrites to some degree. Let's just get over that, okay? If you are living on this planet, you are over the age of 20, you don't even have to be that old. You're probably a hypocrite in some way. You've been a hypocrite. It's okay. It's a terrible word to hear. You're a hypocrite. But like I said earlier, if you make amends, repent from your hypocrisy, then okay, you move forward. So I told you guys I was going to tell you my hypocrisy story. So one of my buddies, years ago, I almost lost my company. And it was one of the first companies I had started. And long story short, it was a hostile takeover attempt. And I needed a lot of cash to get this hostile takeover attempt, to buy my partner out, who was worthless. But I had to buy her out anyway. And it turned out better for me. So my buddy loans me the money. He's the only guy in the world I can go to get this money. And he loans me the money. So I've got this money. And I pay off my partner. I don't remember how much, but it was a substantial amount. But I had a lot left over, and I held on to it for emergency because I wasn't sure when my contracts would come back and if I was going to be able to make payroll and so on and so forth. So he gave me, in effect, twice as much as what I needed, but what I told him was what I actually thought I needed at the time. But instead of giving him that half back, and I didn't, I held on to it as kind of an emergency fund. And to be honest with you, I probably should have just said, okay, I only needed this much and here's the other half back. Well, as time went on, I was just kind of seeing how the bills were getting paid and stuff like this. And I don't remember if we worked out a payment agreement or anything because we certainly had no paperwork. I'm just telling you, he was one of my best buddies. To this day, we are. And for the record, I've made amends because I've loaned him a substantial amount of money and he owes me that money now. But I don't bother him. But long story short, I wasn't paying him back. So he'd hear me say, yeah, hey, I'd say, yeah, I'm getting ready to go do this and went out to dinner with, so-and-so or whatever. And one day he called me up and he says, hey man, what have you been up to? And I said, I just had to go to a dinner. He goes, how was dinner on me? And I went, what? He says, how was dinner on me? And I was thinking, what do you mean it's on you? He's like, you haven't paid me back. And I went, yeah, but I'm going to. He's like, yeah, but until you do, it's dinner on me. And I remember getting somewhat offended. Like, who are you to tell me? But I had to check myself because I'm going, well, technically, he's correct. And then he said to me, he goes, bro, he goes, we're like family. I love you like a brother. I gave you that money to bail you out, and I didn't think 2 seconds of it. We have no paperwork. There's no record of that money. That's how much I trust you. He says, but everything that you do until you pay me back is me doing it, not you. And I was like, oh, and it hit me like, he might as well had just come and punched me right in the face because it hit me right between the eyes. Well, my goodness. And so at that point, as hard as it was to hear that conversation, I was being a hypocrite. But you know what? I learned from it. And I went, here you go. And so I took what I had, to pay him back, and I started paying back, and I paid him back like clockwork. Boom, boom, boom. Now, fast forward years later, by the way, never charged me interest. So, and it was a substantial amount of money, certainly for me at the time. I think he loaned me $80,000. So, fast forward, I learned that he had lost his company. He had a big issue with the IRS. They targeted him, and he filed bankruptcy, etc. He needed a loan. I happened to have the money, and I didn't even blink. I said, what do you mean you're struggling? He says, well, this happened, blah, blah, blah. Guy's a financial genius, but he had this issue. I said, what do you need? He told me. I said, let me talk over with a few things, get with my, my people and see if I can swing it. But if I can, I'm going to get you that money. And sure enough, I did. And he owes it to me to this day. And he's probably had it for 3 years now. And I'm like, it's okay because I did the same thing. And you know what I do know? He's not having dinner on me. He's working his butt off to make sure that when he gets that money, it's saved up, it's coming right back to me. And I know that as much as I know the sun's going to rise in the east and set in the west. So there you have it. But I learned that lesson from one of my best friends. And I'll be honest with you, if it had been anybody else, I might have really gotten an attitude about it. But it was the truth. So CNN has a bit of hypocrisy working. They backtracked on a story. See, when they want to promote a fake news narrative, they splash some salacious headline. But when the proof of the lie hits, they get quieter than a mouse peeing on cotton. And that was the case when they deemed a report on Jeff Sessions, explosive. But they gently walked it back because they had faulted Attorney General Jeff Sessions for failing to reveal meetings that he had with Russian officials when he applied for his security clearance. You remember all the hoopla and the brouhaha over that stuff? Well, it was a disclosure he wasn't required to make. But CNN reported last May that Sessions didn't disclose meetings he had with the Russian ambassador when he was a senator. And the media was all over it, man. I mean, they had airtime on top of airtime portraying Sessions as being shady. He was dishonest. He had colluded with the Russians. And it was an attempt to embarrass not only Jeff Sessions, but to embarrass Donald Trump. The narrative that the Trump campaign was hiding these meetings so the Russians could get whatever they got. It was a lie. The splashy headline on CNN was this. First on CNN, AG Sessions did not disclose Russia meetings in security clearance form, DOJ says. The CNN story claimed that the incident was, quote, the latest example of Sessions failing to disclose contacts he had with Russian officials. 6 months later, they admit the entire report was meaningless. Did they come out and say, you know what, we'd like to issue a formal apology to Attorney General Jeff Sessions? We erroneously reported this. It was, whatever. It was bad form. It was tasteless of us to do it. Anything. No. They leave it hanging out there. Now, they'll say, well, it's no big deal. Why? You're supposed to just put it on page 16, of the lifestyle section. You're not supposed to come back out and say, we screwed up. Now, I'm not telling CNN what to do, but I will tell you this. If I screwed up like that, I would say it. I'd go, wait, we screwed up. No harm, I'm not going to say no harm, no foul, but we screwed up. We're going to take responsibility for the screw up. We had a couple people get us on some fake news stories. They look legit. Then I come out the next day and go, look, guys, we got fooled on this story. We're getting better. We're not a news outlet, but we're trying to get better. But they got us on this. Sorry. I'm no WikiLeaks. I'm no Julian Assange. I don't have millions of dollars and minions going over stuff and making sure it's 100% correct and giving it months of whatever. But I'm no hypocrite when it comes to that either. I'm going to talk about hypocrites today. Most of them are on the left or some rhinos. And you know them too, folks. We'll be back in a bit.
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.